gave us our first 20 roofs to do, and we started right then and there. It got so good that by 2005, I ended up going and sitting and getting the roofing license so I could do any type of roofing. So now we do shingles, tile, metal, flat roofs, residential re-roofing, communities, townhouse projects, things like that. So, and it's served us really well. But we've made every mistake you could probably make in the last 21 years. Starting a business from nothing, especially one you don't know anything about. You're bound to do that, and we have. And by the grace of God, we're here 21 years later. So
2004, right, when you got started, overnight success, or was it kind of a challenge to start getting business running? And talk about some of the challenges early on as you got started.
So right off the jump street, it was not instant success. We jumped in and we decided we wanted to jump into the roofing business. We wanted to make a few $1 million and then get out. I mean, that was the whole business plan. It wasn't very thought out, and we didn't really know a whole lot about roofing. My business partner knew about business, and he assumed I knew about roofing. I came from the framing construction world. I didn't really know anything about roofing. But we learned as we started going. We learned, you start off with sub crews, and you just kind of sub it out, price per square, and you go from there. For us, the hardest thing was we were brand new. We had a new name. No one ever heard of us, and how do we get the work? So, luckily we were given 20 roofs by a friend of mine who owned a roofing company, and that got us started. And once we got started, word of mouth kind of took over from there, and we jumped into some new construction stuff. When the hurricanes hit in Florida, all the roofers run away from the contractors. So the contractors were begging anybody and everybody to work for them. We didn't know any better, so we went to work for them, and it served us well for a little while. But eventually we switched back to a model of just residential re-roofing and high-end communities or apartment complexes, townhouses, things like that.
So you're mostly residential roofing into commercial. What sets you apart from competitors? Why is Code Red growing and expanding and doing so well as you started to kind of get some steam?
So Code Red, we're a faith-based company. I'm a Christian man, always have been. I grew up in the church, and my mom had a prophecy before I was even born that I was going to be a preacher or teacher or something, and I ran from that calling for 44 years of my life because I didn't want to be a preacher. I didn't want to live on $40,000 or $50,000 a year. I was also taught that money was wrong and all that stuff. Later on in life, she's now telling me that's not what I told you. The love of money is the root of all evil and all that stuff. So anyway, here we are. So I never wanted to be the preacher. I wanted to do something to make millions of dollars. I mean, that was it. My whole life I chased money. I got married right out of high school to my high school sweetheart, Jennifer. We've been together for 35 years. And literally I had two goals when I was in high school. One was marry her, and two was find a way to make millions of dollars and we'll ride off into the sunset. The first one was easier than the second one, for sure. So, I started chasing money very quickly. Her dad, my father-in-law, very wealthy guy, and he had everything that I wanted. He had the Porsche 911, he had the Rolex, the boat, the house on the water, and all of it. And I really, really, really was on a mission to get that stuff. I never stopped for a minute to, per se, figure out what success was for me. I just believe money was success, and then the more of it I got, the more successful I would end up being. So I chased it for a long, long time, for about 15 years of Code Red roofers. We had some really good years, we had some really terrible years, we had some years where we were going to close the doors, and everything in between. And I just remember a pivotal moment. One day I said, it it was crazy. So I kind of just bowed my head and I said, Lord, if you'll just let us be able to pay our bills, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So it seemed like from that point forward, around 2017 is when it really started to click. Some things started to happen. I hired a guy named Chris, and I brought him in as a sales guy, and he was a friend of my wife Jen's. And at that time, we just started sales training. We just introduced a CRM software system to take control of our leads that were coming in, and follow up with our customers, and have a database of all this information. We hired a consultant, and started training the sales guys, and it was working really, really well. And then all of a sudden, this guy Chris, he overdosed on heroin, and it kind of shocked me. I never dealt with drugs before, and it happened in the middle of a day at work. My first reaction was he in one of my trucks or was he in one of his trucks? It was kind of a big deal. And at that point in my life, I cared about my employees, but I didn't really care for my employees. I mean, I was nice to them, but I didn't hang out with them after hours. I didn't hire my friends, because if I hired a friend, ultimately you have to fire people. I mean, we're in the business of hiring and firing. So, Chris overdosed on heroin. He ends up out at a place called Dunklin, and Dunklin is a Christian rejuvenation program for men addicted to drugs and alcohol. And because of the prompting of my wife and me being friends with his girlfriend, Patsy at the time, I ultimately went out to Dunklin, and because he didn't have any family that lived in town, they agreed that through his 12-month process, they would allow me to come out and visit with him on Saturdays. Saturdays was game night, so 65 guys in Dunklin. So I started going out to game nights on Saturdays, and they were allowed to have candy and sodas and stuff like that on Saturday night. So I would bring, a bunch of candy, soda, chips, Chick-fil-A. They called me Chick-fil-A Doug for a long time. And I'd go out there on a Saturday night, and we'd just play games for 3 or 4 hours, and we'd play Pictionary mostly. And when Chris was in the program, they gave him a big brother to help him get through the program. And then eventually Chris got a little brother. So I was going out there to play Pictionary with 2 or 3 guys, but every guy had a big brother and a little brother. And about 3 months into it, there was 30 to 40 guys on game night out of the 65 that were out there. So what was costing me $20 to $30 on a Saturday night was costing me about $400 or $500 on a Saturday night. And this was during a time frame where the business wasn't making, tons of money. We were making enough money, and I was making enough to pay myself a salary. But as I was going out there and hanging out with these guys were praying for me. They were praying for my business, and they were, talking to me about all kinds of stuff. And it was odd to me, because it was like, why are these guys praying for me? Like, they're stuck out here for 12 months. I get to go home to my wife and kids. And anyway, it was something that impacted my life, because they talked to me about many different things. One of the things they talked to me about was my pursuit of money, which I just told you guys about. And one of the things they challenged me on was, I was talking about a Rolex. I'm not anti-Rolex, so if anyone in the room has one, good for you. And it has nothing to do with the Rolex. It had everything to do with what it was doing to me inside. So they challenged me on the Rolex, and they asked me, why do you want this Rolex? And I'm like, because I deserve it, because I earned it. I gave every excuse, and they kept challenging. And I remember one of them said, if you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be honest with? And there's no wrong answer. So why do you want the watch? And after about 2 hours of that, it came out that I wanted the watch because I wanted everybody to know that I had a $10,000 or $20,000 watch. That's it's a piece of jewelry. That's all it is. And then they started to challenge me on the car. Why do you want the Porsche? And we went through every one of those things. So after a few of those conversations, I wasn't really convinced that I was still convinced that I was going to buy the car and the watch and everything else. And I was fortunate enough, a short time after that, to have enough money left over to write myself a shareholder distribution check that was going to pay off all my debt and leave me enough money to get the watch. And one of the things that I was learning from these guys was, to journal, spend time in the morning praying, reading my Bible, and writing down, notes and talking to God, writing out prayers basically. And I'd leave the house every morning at 4:30 or 5 o'clock and spend about an hour and a half doing that. And then I would go to work for the day and come home. And one morning, I just got that shareholder distribution check, and it was burning a hole in my pocket. I was ready to pay off my debt and buy the watch. And this is something that I had spoken to my wife about. She was absolutely not against it. And we had made friends. Dunklin, like I said, was a Christian rejuvenation program, drug and alcohol program for men. And some of the people that graduate from there, they stay and they work there. A friend of mine, he's a friend of mine now, he wasn't a friend of mine then, he actually graduated the program, moved to Bonifay, Florida, and started a program just like Dunklin called The Farm. So Jen and I had become really good friends with them. We started to open a site in the Panhandle a few years ago because a hurricane hit there. And so we were there quite a bit. And as we were there, we hit it off. Jeremiah to me is like, even though I've got 3 brothers of my own and a sister, he's like the little brother I never had, and I was the big brother that he never had. So we hit it off really well. And then Jen and his wife, Christina, hit it off really well. So one morning I was on my way out the door to go journal. I was in a hurry this morning. Like I feel like I was always in a hurry no matter what I was doing, I was always in a hurry. So on the way out the door, and Jen said, "Can I go with you this morning to journal?" And I said, "Sure." So she gets ready, and I usually go to the boat ramp where it's nice and quiet. So we ended up going someplace else, which was closer. And as we're talking, we listened to a podcast, we prayed together, journaled a little bit. And then I was kind of praying before we were done, and Jen started crying. And I'm like, "Why are you crying?" And she said, I feel like God told me that we should give money to Jeremiah and Christina." And I'm like, okay. So, giving wasn't something that was new to me. Like, we gave 10% to the church. So it was like, if I was going to give some money, in that time frame, it was like, maybe I'll take a little bit from there to give here. And I said, "Okay, how much?" And she said, $5,000. And I'm like, like, she had no idea. Like, it was like, this is my watch money. So, she had an idea, but it was my watch money. So reluctantly, I said yes. I don't carry a checkbook. I just have counter checks from the bank. I only had one with me, so I wrote a check for $5,000, signed it, and drove her home. And I pulled in the driveway, and it was like, she'll tell you if you ask her after this, she needed to get out of my truck immediately and shut the door, because if she would have spent one more second in my truck, I would have taken the check back from her, because I was torn. It was like, that was my watch money, So she got out, and I went to work, and by the time I got to work, she had already been to the post office to send it out, because she knew that if she put it in the mailbox, I might take it back. So she sent it out, and I struggled with it for a little bit until I received a phone call from Jeremiah, kind of just explaining to me how much that amount of money meant to him and to his family and to their future. And for me, it was just a watch. For them, it was life-changing. And that was my first real act of giving money away, and that's what planted the seed in me, basically, to start giving through my business. I decided that I was going to use my business to give second chances to these guys that lived out at Dunklin. So I started bringing them on. I started hiring those guys and building an environment where we could hold them accountable. And then eventually we started the Love Your Neighbor program.
So I'll give you a second to sip some water. Goals changed, right?
Yeah.
So you were chasing money, you were after the Porsche, you were after the watch, and it shifted from I'm trying to make as much and get profitable, maybe sell the business, to through the discussions with the group. Hey, now I'm not trying to chase money. I'm giving away money, right? The
Right.
business is starting to pick up, and we're doing well. And so you've got Jeremiah is kind of the initial, hey, I'm starting to give and it feels good, to the program of giving a roof away, right?
Yeah.
Love Your Neighbor initiative. So talk us. I mean, it's a huge thing that you do for the community and giving back, and I don't think that you promote that or market that. That's just something that you do internally. So what is the program? How did it get started? Whose idea was it?
So let me back up just for 1 second before I jump into that. So when I gave the money and it was gone, and then Jeremiah called, I was released of that tension within me, as far as giving the money versus buying the watch and all that stuff. And it was a done deal. And the very next day, my son, my oldest son, who was playing baseball competitively 6 days a week, he was a part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he gave me this bracelet. So I put this on my wrist in place of the Rolex. And again, I don't have a problem with people wanting Rolex. It's just what it was doing to me. So I switched, $10,000, $5,000 Rolex with an I Am Second bracelet, and that was my motto. And a few months later, Jen and I would find ourselves in Germany, right? And we were sent there by a TV company that we were doing commercials with. They took us to Munich, Germany, and we stayed in one of the most fabulous hotels. They had the most amazing cars. The Porsche 911 was everywhere. They had Ferraris and BMWs and everything that you can imagine. We did the BMW experience. So everything that I was chasing in my life was all in one, or two blocks. And it was like, it was impressive. And every day we would walk across from our hotel through these places called beer gardens. And then on the way, there was a store called Ashley's Jewelry Shop right there in Munich, Germany. And they had the most amazing Rolex right in the window. My wife pointed it out to me every day for 3 days in a row. She's like, look at this watch, and she's like, this is the one you want, but it's even better. And it had like rubies and all kinds of different jewels in it. And she's like, I think we should go in there and buy that watch. And I would walk away, and day 2, she did the same thing. And then day 3, I'm like, let's go back to the room. So we went back to the room to talk. When I decided to give up that money in the truck that day and hand her that check, I never told her that was my watch money. She just thought we were giving them $5,000, and I agreed to it. In my mind, I had made the shift. It was my watch money. When I put this on, I was not going back. And so I get to the room. I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you keep trying to get me to buy this watch? And she's like, it's because you've always wanted it. You deserved it. And we're here in Germany, and why not buy it here? It's better. No one's ever going to have one like this. You're never going to run into anybody that has the same Rolex as you. So I explained to her, I'm like, listen, that day that I gave you the money in the truck, that you sent it to Jeremiah, I gave up the Rolex and I put this on. And she's like, I didn't know that. You didn't tell me. And that's when I found out that I did not communicate with my wife very well. So that became something that we started to work on pretty aggressively, at least I did. So we left the hotel after having that conversation. I'm feeling confident that we're on the same page now, and we walked right past Ashley's jewelry store again. And Jen's like, how about this one? Instead of the Rolex, there was another one. And it was, probably equally as cool. So I went over and looked at it, and the name of the watch was Sin, S-I-N-N. So I said, so we're gonna go in there and I'm gonna take this I Am Second bracelet off and I'm gonna strap Sin to my wrist. And we both kind of looked at each other, laughed, and ever since then it's never been a topic of conversation. So the Love Your Neighbor initiative was never called the Love Your Neighbor initiative until about 1.5 years ago. It was called, free roof giveaway. I don't remember who came up with it. I had a business partner at one point in time. It may have come from him, it may have come from me. I'm not 100%. But I remember the first roof that we ever gave away. It was to an older woman. It was on a manufactured home. And the way that we did it then is, at least the work part of it, is identical to the way that we do it now. Once we decided to give this older woman a roof that she couldn't afford, My wife was involved, my business partner's wife was involved, girls in the office were involved, people that worked at Code Red were involved. And the very first one we did more than the roof. We did the roof, we changed some toilets out, we ripped some carpet up, put some wood floors down, we fixed a sink, we did some landscaping, mulch, I think we cut the grass, painted, we did all kinds of stuff. We did way more than the roof. And it was never, I don't know, I wouldn't say it was necessarily ever about the roof. It was more about helping people. So we just wanted to help her. The guys that came from Dunklin, I just wanted to help them. I wanted to give second chances to people that literally seemingly didn't deserve a second chance. And I even wrote out a business plan on paper, and it didn't even look right on paper, but it has worked really, really well for the last 7 or 8 years. It's been phenomenal. So anyway, the first one was just to give a free roof away, and then why don't we do it every quarter? And so we were just two men owning this roofing company. We didn't have a whole lot of organization. We didn't have a whole lot of women working for us, and hired this girl named Carly about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And Carly asked me if she could take the free roof giveaway and turn it into something special. And I said, sure. So she changed the name of it to the Love Your Neighbor Project. And she came up with a system where people within Code Red Roofers could nominate people from the community. Sales guys could nominate people that they're trying to sell a roof to that didn't have the money. Anybody and everybody within Code Red Roofers could nominate whoever they wanted. And it changed the whole dynamics of the way that we do it. I remember the first one after that, when she changed the name, we had about 6 people show up to nominate people for roofs. And it was, my neighbor needs help with a roof. And they would give a presentation and we'd bring it up on, we have this massive 100-inch smartboard TV, so we can zoom in on Google Earth and spin it around and look at all of it and measure it and do everything you need to do to Street View and everything else. And they'd give a presentation of why they thought that person should be nominated. And then the next person would come and do it as well. And we had 5 or 6 of them just cycle right through. And it made them more a part of the process. So before it was about me and my business partner, maybe my wife and his wife feeling good about it. And then it became something where, people that literally work for us were getting involved in and going out and helping the community in a real way. And they got to be a part of the front end of choosing some of these people. So now it's the Love Your Neighbor initiative. It's amazing because we just gave away our 4th roof this year. Prior to Jen and I flying here the other day, we were at a friend's house. They couldn't afford a new roof, and the insurance company was, putting pressure on them. They were going to have to take money out of their 401k and pay the fees and whatever it goes with that. And so they were nominated by my wife, and then my daughter loved them just as much, and she wrote this big long thing and came up with a PowerPoint presentation, and nobody else had done that. So, they ended up winning, and so we were able to go over and present her with her new roof prior to coming here, and it was really special. She's someone that we've known for a long time. Jen and I went to high school with her husband, and she was actually a sales rep at ABC Supply, which used to be called Bradco back in the day. She was my tile rep. So it was nice to be able to help someone who was nice to me at one point in time and gave me, special pricing and stuff back in the day. So it was the one that was so far has been closest to my heart to do. But this kind of stuff has changed the dynamics of my company, like giving. In 2018 is when Chris went to Dunklin. 2018, 2019 is when I gave up my Rolex money. The same time frame is when we started giving the free roofs away. And then Jen and I had made a decision that we were going to give 15% of all the money that came in our house away to church and charity. and then eventually 20, and now we're at 25%. We give away 25% every dollar that comes in our house. Jen's ready to move to 30. I'm still stuck on 25 because 30 scares me a little bit. But the reason we're doing that is, A, we've seen what a difference it makes in the community. We see how God brings it right back to us every single time. And I'm not saying that if you give to the poor that God's going to throw money at you, but it's one of these things that we just feel like we can't lose, no matter what. If we give of our time or of our efforts, of our money, it always comes back somehow, some way, and it always comes back better than it was when it went out. And the feeling you get when you give to someone is much more fulfilling than the Rolex or the 911 or the 47 Freeman. But to put it into perspective or put it into numbers, from 2018 to present, in 2018 we were doing about $7 million a year in roofing, and this year we're pushing probably $30 to $35 million in sales and $26 million in revenue is what we're projecting for the end of this year. So in a 7-year, 8-year time span, we've gone from a $7 million company to almost a $35 million company, and it's 5X. So God didn't just write me a check and send it right back to me, but he sent me a ton of work. He sent me a ton of employees. And I'll be honest with you, I am the CEO of Code Red Roofers. I'm not a CEO. I'm just a guy that I'm just a guy who had this spiritual thing impact my life, changed my course, and since I've changed my course, all I've really done is done what God has asked me to do with my business. So I can't take any credit for the 7 million to 35 million. I can't take any credit for all the wins that I've had, other than the fact that I was just obedient and I did what he wanted me to do. And it's impacted my life. It's changed the life of Jen and my. It's changed our lives together as a married couple. It's changed our families' lives, and it's changed 240 lives of the people that work for me. And then it goes even beyond that. Those 240 people represent 1,000 people in Martin County that rely on Code Red Roofers to pay their bills every month, because all of them have kids, all of them have wives, all of them have husbands, and it just became this really amazing thing. And then word of mouth, gets around. Hey, did you hear what Code Red's doing? I got a call from another roofer, and I don't know if you guys know this, but in my industry, especially in Florida, roofers don't talk to one another. I don't have the same feeling that they do, but they hate us for whatever reason. I feel like we're the big guys on the block, and they take every shot at us they possibly can. I have no problem talking to other roofers. I have no problem helping other roofers, and I've done it several times. When they get into trouble, they will call, and I will have no problem go sit down and talk to them. I have no problem holding them accountable when their sales guys say things that are ridiculous about Code Red, but I believe that if you're trying to do something and become successful at it, help somebody else that's trying to do the very same thing, and ultimately you'll be rewarded for that. Anyway, I say all that to say a fellow roofing contractor or competitor of mine called me up one day, and he's like, hey, I've got this girl, Caroline, working over here. I don't have enough work to keep her busy. She knows how to do everything. She knows how to do permitting. She knows how to do admin stuff in the office. She's kind of a jack of all trades. Do you want her? And I said, sure, send her over. We'll interview her. So she came over. She's Puerto Rican, and I didn't know that. She was black, so I didn't know she was Puerto Rican until one day someone walked in the office and we needed someone to speak Spanish, and she started speaking Spanish to them. And I'm like, you speak Spanish? She's like, yeah, I'm Puerto Rican. So anyway, I have a special connection with Caroline. She started out in the permitting department, and she worked in the call center from there, and she just liked being outside. So OSHA has become something that's a real stickler for us, or a real thorn in our side. The OSHA fines cost us a lot of money every year, so Caroline said she could and wanted to be the safety officer for Code Red Roofers. She's a woman, and she was able to get every one of these guys signed up for their OSHA 10, OSHA 20. She goes around the jobs, and if they're not wearing their harnesses, she lets them have it. But it all came from a guy that owned a roofing company that says, I have this girl. She was in addiction. I feel like she will fit in really good with the people over at Code Red Roofers. Would you interview her? And we did, and of course, she fit right in, and we hired her. She's been with us for probably 3 years now. She gave me a big hug the other day and told me, I hope you do good in North Carolina. She says, I know you will, so.
So Doug, when you first got started, right, and part of your story is that you were calling on roofers, contractors, and nobody would call you back, or it'd be a long time before they call you back, and the service was poor. And your mission was, hey, I'm going to call you back, right, and we're going to communicate, right, and that's just out of the fact that nobody else was doing that. That was an advantage for you. And while you're still in the mindset, I'm chasing money and I'm trying to grow, whether that switch would have flipped in the culture and the value and the goals and the objectives or not, I think you still would have been successful.
Right.
But the culture changed. Now you're giving away money. Not only does it feel good, but there's also a lot of synergy with the culture inside of the company with the employees, like you're talking about, right?
Right.
So you mentioned, hey, I'm not necessarily hiring and working with friends, but as I'm reaching out to some of the employees and trying to do some due diligence before we have this conversation, the joy and the love from your employees that they have and towards you and your leadership is really admirable. And so I was talking to Brandon earlier, and it's, hey, we've got a faith-based company. We're going to call you back. We're going to communicate. We're going to do a good job. We're going to stand behind what we do. We give back to the community. It just seems like it's a no-fail formula for success. So it's just an awesome game plan that obviously you've been blessed to lead, and the company has done well. So there's the giving towards Jeremiah, there's the love for your neighbor, and then also, talk about Project Lift and the involvement with them.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be a part of a Thursday men's breakfast. It's with a lot of guys, business leaders in my church, and then some of them don't go to my church. They're just business leaders of the community. And one of them is the CEO of Project Lift. Project Lift is kind of like, they do kind of the same thing as Dunklin, but they work with the younger generation, the kids that are still in high school, that are dropping out, the kids that are more than likely going to be pushed in the direction of a trade. So at Project Lift, they teach kids how to work on cars. They teach them how to do HVAC work. And so it just came up one Thursday morning at this breakfast. I was talking to Bob, and he was saying that he had reached out to several local businesses to kind of do business with, or have them partner with Project Lift in some sort of way to kind of help each other. You help us, help the kids, and nobody was interested in that. So I was, a couple days later, I was walking in the morning before I went to work, and I called him and I said, hey, I don't know how, but the Code Red Roofers would like to partner with Project Lift somehow. I said, we're dealing with the same type of guys here, or same type of kids. On my side, Dunklin was strictly men, so we're dealing with men, but some of these men had women, wives that were in addiction that are working for us as well. And then Bob's dealing with the kids on the Project Lift side of things. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. What can we do to partner with these guys? And for us at Code Red Roofers, the next piece was we own our own roofing company, we own a gutter company, and we need metal manufacturing. The big roofing contractors in Florida that are really, really, really making it are the ones that own their own metal manufacturing companies. They bend all their own accessory metals, and they make all their own roof panels, and then they also sell to the public. So that was the next piece. So we bought a couple brakes and some shears, and we put them in a Project Lift building, and we partnered with Project Lift. We started a company called Mission Field Metals, and basically I'm the owner of Mission Field Metals, and a few of my employees as well, and Bob with Project Lift is one of the owners as well. And basically, our machines are in Project Lift's building. The kids from Project Lift bend all of our accessory metals. They've been doing it for about 3 or 4 months now. So by the end of the year, they will, we'll have 6 months of solid buying accessory metals strictly from Mission Field Metals, bent by these kids who are being taught how to use this machinery. And then eventually the next step would be, we're talking about a roofing school, teaching them how to sell, teaching them how to, be on the production side of things, teaching them how to install, that kind of stuff. So right now, the big piece is the Mission Field Metals and working hand in hand with them. We've got the roof panel machines coming here in the next 6 weeks. So when the panel machines get here, they'll learn how to run the roofing panels as well. And then January 1 of 2026, we'll be selling to the public and producing all of our own sheet metal for Code Red roofers. So
yeah, win-win. Roofing company giving away a roof, right? Not all business owners have as conducive of giving as that. Any advice to business owners of how they can give back in the community, give and kind of what they can do regardless of kind of the structure of their business?
So I think even if, for us, in the beginning, we couldn't afford to do that, but we can always afford to give of our time. There's these guys that come from Dunklin, whatever age they were when they started using drugs, that's where their life paused. So if it was 15 or 16 years old, they are 16 years old until they get free of drugs, and then they start to take off. So they never learned how to put together a budget or manage their own money. They never learned how to buy a house or buy a car. They never learned how to be a husband, and so if you can't afford to give money, or if you can't afford to give something as expensive as a roof, like we couldn't in the beginning, mentoring somebody, it's like I've had this new mindset that every level that I hit, I want to reach down and pull as many people up with me as I can, and those are the people that are usually working for me. 100% my kids. Every plateau I hit, or every milestone that I hit, I want to teach my kids how to manage their money, how to treat their wives, how to treat their husbands. So any advice that we can give to people, I find that there's a lot of people, especially in my industry, that had parents, but their parents either didn't know enough or they just weren't around to teach them how to do some of these things. And some of these things are really easy to do, and all of us in this room know how to do something. And it's just taking what we know how to do and instilling that into the younger generation so they can end up on the right side of things when they grow up. So if you can't afford to give them money right off the rip, start with your time. It all comes back no matter what. It's just amazing how it all comes back. I've sat down with several of them and helped them write out a budget. Chris, the one that I started the story with, he did eventually end up being done with Dunklin. He married Patsy, who was his girlfriend. Now she's his wife. They had his first kid, who's 4 years old now? 5 years old now. I wrote a handwritten budget with him 7 years ago on a napkin, and he still has it hanging on his refrigerator at his house. Now his finances have changed for the better, and he hangs it there just to remind himself to live on that budget. And that's when you start helping people manage their money, it's amazing how few people in America have $3,000 or $4,000 in the bank. People that work and make $70,000, $80,000 a year, and they don't have a couple $1,000 in the bank. Giving these guys opportunities, helping them set up a budget. A lot of them are making, $90,000 to $100,000 a year doing the jobs that they're doing for us. And the ones that are not making that much, if we can help them maximize how far their money will go and teach them how to live on less, they'll be better off for it. So, and I'm willing to help any of them with anything, anytime. I suggest books that I read. One of the biggest books that I was impacted by was Leadership Not by the Book, and it's about the story of Hobby Lobby, and the owner of Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby is worth billions of dollars. This guy's giving away 80% of his money every single year, to the tune of billions of dollars. And that's one that really impacted me. But all the things that he did a lot of things. He gave health insurance. He started a small hospital for all of his employees to get MRIs and scans and stuff like that. So anything and everything that we can do to help our employees, the better off. And the harder that you work to better their lives, the harder they're going to work to better your life and work their butts off for you too. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Take some questions.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions. Yes, sir.
2017, 2018, to take off with your employees and to write the check for the materials and the other thing, like how hard was it to commit to the first roof from a financial, mental, because the business wasn't as strong, right? You
Right.
said earlier, but to commit and say, we're going to do this no matter what it takes, how hard was it to commit then? Or had you kind of crossed that barrier because of the things leading into it?
It was hard to do that. It was hard to shuffle some things around and make it happen, because things were tight. Money was tight. I mean, we were doing way less work than we're doing now, and I'll give you a contrast for that one. We just did one this year in the second or third quarter. Typically, the roofs that we do that are free they're usually less fortunate people. It's usually a small up and over shingle roof, maybe a $5,000 or $6,000 roof. You know what I mean? And the last one we just gave away, not the last one we gave away last week, but the one prior to that, was over $40,000 tile roof, and it typically is not the typically not the dollar range that we're looking to do free roofs in. Usually, a person that's got a $40,000 roof is not a person that is needing help from us. One of our sales guys had been out there giving her a quote on her roof. She didn't have the money to do it, and then she had a tragedy happen. And one of the girls on the call center picked it up and started calling to follow up. And the lady was crying on the phone, and somebody walked into. Her son was in his 30s. Someone walked into the shop where he was welding and shot him 6 times and killed him. So Alexis, who works for me in the call center, she was so moved by that I think she ended up praying with this woman and then hung up. And then she called Curtis, who was the sales guy, and said she doesn't want to do the roof because her son was murdered. So the next opportunity to nominate someone for a free roof, Curtis shows up. He's the sales guy, if he gets her nominated and we do the roof, he's losing his commission on it. Alexis is in the call center, but if she gets this person to sign over the phone, she gets a percentage of it too, so she's walking away from it. And there was one other person. So there was 3 people that came in to nominate this woman. And because of the vote, and because that one pulled on the heartstrings the most, that no mother ever wants to have to live through the pain of getting their kid killed, that kind of just resonated with us. So we went to tell her that she was getting the free roof, and it was very impactful. And the people, I wasn't there on that one, but there was about 10 people that went and took her flowers and cookies and all kinds of stuff to let her know that, hey, you get a free roof. She was crying, my employees were crying. I mean, everybody was a crying mess. I had people calling me like, it was the most impactful thing ever, and I can't believe you missed it. And I wish I didn't miss it. I was off doing something else, but that's a contrast. So the first one was very, very tough to give away because of money. This one typically would be tough to give away. $30,000 or $40,000 roof is a big deal for us. But it was more about the story that was behind it and how it was going to impact this woman's life. So that's the reason we did it.
But that blew through your budget for the year then, right? Like you probably budget, it's like in the line item, you have the love your neighbor budget somewhere, right? So a $40,000 roof is probably $40,000 for the year, and they say, one roof blows through the entire thing.
So that's a great point. So another thing that happened is almost all of our people are 100% on board with this initiative. We now give all of our employees get profit share checks for the profit that the company makes. So everybody gets a profit share check. So we've had a handful of people out of the 240 that say to us, well, listen, if we give away this roof, is that going to affect our profit share? And my answer is always yes. It's going to affect your profit share, but your profit share is going to be better than it would have been if we didn't do it. And we've even offered to give these people that if it doesn't work, if you feel like it doesn't work out, we'll give you your money, because we don't want you to feel like you got cheated on this deal. And every one of them that have ever brought that up they've all been impacted by it somehow, some way. It's just been an amazing thing that we do. It's nothing that this is the first time I've ever talked about it in front of anybody other than employees. Like, we talk about it internally. We don't use it as an advertisement. We don't put it on social media. We don't tell the world about it. We don't feel like that's what we're supposed to do. But these guys asked me to come here today and talk about giving and how it's impacted my business. And I would tell you that it's probably the biggest reason my company 5X'd in the last 8 years is just because of the giving component. And then I can tell you from a personal standpoint, my financial situation has changed dramatically over the last 7 or 8 years as well. So, I think the more that we do to help people out, the more that's going to come back to us in some shape or form. And, it's better to give than to receive. And my wife and I believe it, and we live by it, and we own the company, so that's what we dictate to happen in our company, and it works. So,
fantastic, impact, fascinating journey, awesome leader, great job. Questions? Anybody else? Yeah.
Because I love the whole transition. It's interesting. I'm listening to a kind of a podcast with St. Michael Angel and battling evil and devices, and it talks about the opposite of greed is charity, and that's exactly what you've done, right?
Right.
You have embraced charity. What's your view of money now?
My view of money now is money's a tool. So I've had the money in my hand. I could go buy a Rolex any day of the week that I wanted to now, right? So that was the big thing in my life, the first big thing. But because I now understand why I wanted it, I'd rather give that money to somebody else than put a watch on my hand. I feel the same way about the boats and the cars and stuff like that. I mean, I still want a specific car, but it shifted from the 911 GT3 to a 1969 Ford F100 hot rod. So it's pretty much the same money, but it doesn't scream to the world, $400,000 car. It's a 1969 truck. Money's a tool. Money can be used. There was a calling on my life from the time I was before I was even born, and I ran from it. But I feel like this is what God wanted me to do all along. He wanted me to go into business, and He wanted me to use my business as a kingdom-driven business. And so I think I've fulfilled the calling that was on my life. I just didn't know that it was in this capacity rather than the other. So, but money is absolutely, it's a tool where we can help people and we can do good for the community. So.